Hi everyone. I decided to make an extra video this time around and to just cover a slightly smaller topic in regards to DC collectibles. After they finished their new 52 line of figures, they opted to make a line based on the more classic look of most of the DC Universe heroes and the bad guys. And this other line is called DC Icons. They come with a lot of little accessories like extra hands shaped in different ways, such as flat hands, gripping hands, fist hands, and so forth. And some of them come with the weapons as well. So that's what kind of made this particular line a bit more popular than the new 52. And of course, the articulation was increased quite a bit. And on top of it, all I can say is that they're actually not your typical regular 6-inch size or 6.5 like the rest of the DC collectibles. These guys are a bit smaller, I would say around 5.5 inches tall. But I suppose that doesn't really matter. Now, of course, you couldn't probably combine them with the figures from other series because they wouldn't match in size at all. But if you're into DC Icons, then you would just continue collecting that particular line for all the characters they have so far, even though I hear some characters that were supposed to come out were cancelled due to a low interest in some particular ones. But anyway, let's start with I have only a few of them, so I will just show you the few that I have. Some of the other ones among the bad guys I already covered in one of my previous videos, such as Joker in his trench coat and fedora hat and a Tommy gun, and I also covered Harley Quinn with her mullet as a weapon and a cork gun and wearing her classic costume. I also covered her I covered both of them in the Gotham bad guys, enemies of Batman, in one of my previous videos. Anyway, right now I'll be talking about, as I said, the few that I do have from DC Icons, good guys specifically. So I will start with Superman, always being my favorite. I will start with him then. This is Superman in his classic costume. Has a nice rubber cape made of thinner material, and of course, thankfully he is wearing his legendary letter S in proper yellow color right at the right at the cape itself, and he is quite articulated, which is pretty much valid for most of these figures that came in this line. So he can do quite a bit of a split, roughly that much, and he can move his arms up and down. There is a bicep swivel. There is elbow articulation. He can move his fist back and forth, and there is a wrist movement as well. And of course, you can replace these hands with the extra hands that came with him. And the head can move left to right, and he can move down a little bit, and that's about it. Also, there is movement in the chest area, right below, right in this area here, and there doesn't seem to be any movement in the waist, but only in the chest area, so there is some. And he came with an accessory of a sort, which would be his robot from the Fortress of Solitude, who is made in one solid piece, but he does have articulation. He can move his arms, and the head can move left to right. And he has the plastic see-through stand that can be attached at the bottom to hold them up so that he can actually stand. These kinds of robots I remember him having, especially at the time when he faced Doomsday the very first time in his Fortress of Solitude. And if I'm not mistaken, he used to have more than one of these robots assisting him around. And the good thing is, being quite articulated that he is, you can pretty much pose him any way you want, which is good in the sense of being able to pose him in a variety of poses so that he doesn't look very static like some of the other figures. So this is my sort of impression of him flying, and as I said, it's quite good, the fact that he can make all sorts of range of motions, and then it gives you better options due to the fact that other DC collectible figures don't have as much movement as this one does. They're rather limited. So this is Superman in his classic costume. He's also known as Clark Kent as his secret identity. And more about Superman and his background in a video that I'm planning to make, where I show different versions of Superman in toy form. But this is as far as it goes in regards to DC icons Superman. The next logical one to show would be Batman. Batman here is again represented wearing his more classic costume of grey and blue and with a yellow belt. He has the same type of articulation as Superman and has also a nice cape made of softer rubber. He came with also extra hands that can be replaced, and with an open hand, a fist, and a gripping hand. He came also with two smaller accessories, one being molded into his hand. It's more like his hook gun that he can fire, and it's attached on a string, and the other one is his batarang. So he does come with quite a bit of smaller types of accessories. Of course, Batman's secret identity is Bruce Wayne, the billionaire, who lost his parents when he was just a child. He witnessed them getting murdered by a petty thug who attacked them in order to steal their money and jewelry. Ever since he lost his parents, the young Bruce decided that he will grow up and exact revenge on all the criminals out there. And with the help of Alfred, his mentor in a way, and guardian and a butler, he would be raised to become eventually Batman, choosing his own costume and the persona, something that would inflict major fear in all the criminals out there. Batman became quite an icon in the comics and had numerous, even to this very day, numerous cartoons and TVs and even a TV series and major blockbuster movies and so forth. And he also had numerous actors playing him on screen. But his early beginnings date back to 1930s, when he was first created by an artist called Bob Kane. And numerous artists, together with Bob Kane, worked on the comics over the decades. And Batman is still very much popular these days, many years later. And he has a lot of supporting characters who are his allies, and he's affiliated with the Justice League. And in the very old days back, around prior to World War II, he was associated with the Justice Society of America. And yeah, so he had numerous toy lines as well. But more about these sorts of things in another video. I'm just giving you a short introduction to the character, especially for those of you who are not really familiar or don't follow superhero stuff. So that would be Batman. The next one from the icons would be Flash. And I personally believe this is Barry Allen, the second Flash in the chronology of speedsters. He's here showing up in his classic costume, and he came with a small treadmill which is used by this particular Flash to travel through time by using his super speed. Now that treadmill I keep on the side because I prefer to just display the figure. The articulation is very much the same as all the DC Icons figures, and he has also switchable hands. I am displaying him with one fisted hand and one flat hand, and he has like little wings molded on his mask, and also has a smaller wing molded onto the boots as well. And other than that, he also has quite a long history in the comics, has had 2 TV series, and he will be showing up in an upcoming Justice League movie. And of course, that probably in the movie of Justice League, he probably won't be Barry Allen, but he will probably be Barry's nephew, Wally West, if I'm not mistaken, because Wally West becomes the new Speedster. But at any rate, Flash's popularity has only been growing ever since creation up until now, and he does have numerous toys made of him as well. So yeah, that's another good figure from the lineup and another good choice for the DC icons. Now the next one I'm going to talk about is Arthur Curry, also known as Aquaman. He is a very similar type of character to Namor from Marvel Comics, and he came with his classic weapon, the Trident. And this is pretty much the classic look of Aquaman. This is way before he had the long hair and the beard and one hooked hand and so forth, because that came much later on. This is the way I remember him when I was a kid, because the changed look of the beard and all that came later on. Aquaman is the king of Atlantis. He's been on relatively good terms with the surface dwellers, but in the later incarnations he's shown to have some grudges against the people of Earth because they're very careless in dealing with the seas and oceans and lakes and so forth. So he's not quite happy about that. But he does serve with the Justice League. He is a member there in order to sort of establish better relations between Atlantis and the rest of the world, and the surface dwellers, as he calls them. And articulation-wise, he has the same type of articulation as the rest of the figures I already covered. He came with extra hands again, because that's sort of a selling point, extra hands to be able to display him slightly differently. He came with an extra head as well, and this other head is pretty much the same, except you can attach this invisible piece of plastic to his forehead to sort of resemble his power, that he can use his mind to control the sea creatures to do his bidding. That's kind of an interesting thing, but I rather prefer to display him like this, with no attachments to the head. And one of his earliest appearances in a toy form would be dating back probably to the Mega toys back in the 1970s, and then the first major action figure actually came in the shape of superpowers done by Kenner back in the 80s. After that, he appeared in his newer form with the hooked hand and the long hair, beard, and mustache in the Hasbro Justice League toy line. And then after that, he had numerous appearances in a toy form coming from DC Direct and of course from DC Collectibles and also from the Mattel toy line, based on comics, based on his new looks and his classic look, and of course his appearances on TV would involve practically showing up in TV series such as Smallville, and then showing up in the Batman Brave and the Bold, where he was shown to be a bit of a funny looking character who likes to boast too much about his achievements and adventures and so forth. And then he also showed up in the DC animated movie The Throne of Atlantis, and he showed up in many games as well, such as the Lego Batman Beyond, and also the second and the third Lego Batman games, and in numerous other entertainment memorabilia that's available out there, aside from comics, of course, where he has a long running history. In the latest movie of the Justice League, he will be in there, played by the actor Jason Momoa. Most of you know that actor from the Game of Thrones, where he played the first husband of Daenerys. So yes, Aquaman will have an appearance there as well, as one of the founding members of the Justice League. Recruited probably by Batman, from what I've seen in the trailer, to join them. Anyway, this is as far as Aquaman goes, and one last figure left to talk about. And I already attached everything on him, and I'll explain what I mean by that. This is Hal Jordan, the second Green Lantern of Earth in line, the first one being Alan Scott. Why you cannot really see him? Because he comes with this numerous attachments to create this power armor that he can wear over the figure, that comes with these attachments that look like laser guns, and it's made in green color to show the actual power of Hal Jordan to be able to create all sorts of weapons and constructs using his power ring. So this sort of emulates how he created this armor for fighting. Now, underneath all this armor you can see the regular face of Hal Jordan and his classic costume, but I would rather not remove this armor due to the fact that it's rather made of thin plastic and translucent plastic that might easily get damaged in the process or even break off completely. And since I only have one piece of this particular, meaning one sample of this Green Lantern, then I would rather not risk it to remove it too much. But anyway, you do know how Hal Jordan looks like, and even if you don't, I will be doing a video on him where I can show you a few versions of him in his classic costume from different lines where he was made in the past. Other than that, he also comes with extra human hands as well, so that he can have the human hands instead of these laser attachments, and he also comes with one construct arm that's very big in the shape of a flaming fist that he can use as well. He came also with his lantern charger for the ring, and the ring is molded on one of his fingers, on one of the hands. And he was more of a deluxe figure due to the fact that among all these figures I showed you so far in this video, he came with the most accessories. Especially this entire armor, which is made of so many different pieces. Other than that, Hal Jordan was selected to be the Green Lantern responsible for the Earth sector a long time ago by the Guardians of Oa, the actual planet and the headquarters of the Green Lantern Corps. Before he became Green Lantern, he was an actual test pilot working for the military, and once he was selected to become the new Green Lantern, then he trained long and hard to become one. He had numerous appearances in different cartoon series and animated movies as well. Aside from him, there are some other Earth lanterns that also came about. As I already mentioned before him, there was an Alan Scott, who was the very first Lantern to have that power. After Hal Jordan, there was also John Stewart and Kyle Rayner, the two most notable other Lanterns that I can think of. And they all come from Earth. They were selected at one point or another, sometimes as replacements for Hal Jordan. Hal Jordan, in one of the comic books, actually lost his native city and his girlfriend, who were completely destroyed, and the girlfriend was killed by one of the most known villains in the DC universe, being Mongol, who is a sort of a warlord of a planet where he creates gladiatorial games for his own amusement, and also he has powerful weapons on that planet that can destroy the whole cities elsewhere in the galaxy. When he lost his native city and all that, he almost went insane with rage, and negative feelings overcome him. He did get his revenge on Mongol, but eventually his anger was never really able to vanish, and then he practically succumbed to madness and became a villain called Parallax, at least for a while. In the end, many years later, in the newer comics, he was able to get rid of that entity, and he became sane and normal again, and he returned to being a Green Lantern once more. He also showed up in some of the DC Elseworlds comics where his origin stories are different and the costume is different. Most notably, the version that comes to mind is from the story of Superman Red Sun, where Superman was raised in communist Russia instead of United States. And he shows up in that comic book as one of the fighter pilots for the United States, and he was also wielding a ring there, but he did not have the green costume. He was just wearing his pilot uniform, and he fought Superman in order to try and stop him from invading United States, among the other heroes who also put up a fight. Then he showed up in the Batman Brave and the Bold cartoon series, He was also played in a movie of Green Lantern, played by Ryan Reynolds a couple of years back. And aside from that, he had a minor appearance in the Justice League Unlimited, and also before that he was in the Batman animated series in the sort of a final season, where Batman meets different members of the Justice League and has an adventure with each of them, and then joins forces with them in one of the final episodes. And also he had numerous appearances in the cartoon series in the past, such as Super Friends specifically, that come to mind, and DC superheroes that dates back to 1950s as well, the short animated movies from that era. And his biggest appearances were actually throughout the DC comics over the decades. So yeah, and then he has a great deal of allies in the Green Lantern Corps, and his mortal enemy is Sinestro, Green Lantern that eventually, due to his ambitions, turned bad and became a leader of the Yellow Lanterns. But more about such characters another time, and more about his allies in the Green Lantern Corps again in another video. So anyway, that's as far as the DC Icons line done by DC Collectibles goes. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, at least a small introduction to this line. And next time I will be continuing the discussion along the lines of the DC Collectibles and any of the other DC figures that I have, also going back to the DC Direct lineups as well. So that's all from me for now. I hope you guys liked the video, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you. Bye.